Recording in progress.
Good evening. It's 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday, July 2nd, 2024, City of Franklin Common Council meeting. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Mayor Nelson,
Here.
District 1 vacant, Alderman Eichman.
Here.
Alderman Hassan,
Here.
Alderwoman Day,
Absent.
Alderman Barber,
Here.
and Alderman Craig.
Here. Excellent. Got a quorum. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we've got to take something a little bit out of order here. So we're going to go with G1, a resolution in ratification of a proclamation to authorize the remote attendance of an alderperson at common council meetings upon temporary health circumstances pertaining to the alderpersons not allowing for physical mobility to attend the meeting in person and the availability of a quorum for the meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
We got a first and a second. All saying, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Going into B, citizen comment period. I've been reading this. I'll continue to read this decorum for attendees. Before we go into this, City of Franklin meeting rules of decorum for attendees and participants. For those attending City of Franklin meetings, respectful and orderly conduct is expected at all times. Disruptive or unruly behavior, including but not limited to clapping, verbal disruptions, signs, and outbursts, will not be tolerated. For those wishing to speak during City of Franklin meetings, approach the microphone that's there. When the chair opens the floor for citizen comments, state your name and address for the record. Address your comments to the Common Council, Board, Commission, or Committee only, that's facing this way. Limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. No endorsements or electioneering are allowed. Speaker shall refrain from presenting unduly repetitious, offensive, threatening, slanderous, defamatory, or obscene remarks. Persons wishing to speak as a spokesperson on behalf of a neighborhood, subdivision, homeowners, condominium, or business association, or similar group with common interests shall demonstrate their qualifications to do so according to City of Franklin Resolution Number 2007-6227 before speaking on that body's behalf. Questions may be answered immediately by the chair, that's me, or referred to city staff for a future reply in a timely manner. Those not adhering to these rules of decorum for attendees and participants will be asked to leave or will be removed from the meeting if necessary. So again, 3 minutes or less. I ask if you wish to speak. You see somebody at the podium, come up behind them, so we're not doing the look around and we wait for people. We want to try to move this along. We understand and appreciate and respect everybody's opinions. We're also looking to respect everybody's time up here as well. So please, we're open at this time. Anybody wishing to speak, come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. 3 minutes. Mr. City Engineer will keep the time. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. And hello, Alderman Barber. Linda Mathwig, 7321 Brunn Drive. Mayor Nelson, at the last Common Council meeting, you had
I'm sorry, is that on?
At the last council meeting, is that better? You told me that I probably would rather be doing something fun instead of coming to these meetings and speaking during the citizen comment period. You are correct. I don't want to be here. However, I strongly feel that the Common Council is not putting the best interests of Franklin citizens first, in addition to the citizens of Greendale. And that is why I'm here again to speak on behalf of everyone who is suffering because of your decisions. During the Rock Venture event, Tacos and Tequila and Phase Fest held on June 22nd and 23rd, my time then was also taken by the irresponsible actions of this council because once again, the noise was extreme. I have a few pieces of information that I'd like to bring to the council's attention. At your request, I would be happy to give a copy of each to you. On June 22nd, monitor information on the Franklin website was available from 2:18 p.m. through 7:43 p.m. For the remainder of the night, the surrounding communities were saved from the noise due to inclement weather. The average, or the LAEQ decibel reading during the recorded time, the lowest was 78.6 and the highest was 92.4. The latter being a clear violation of the 79 decibels that you, Mayor Nelson, stated was allowed. But the maximum sound level, or the LAF max, means the loudest sound recorded. The low was 82.4 and a shocking high reading of 107.9. On June 23rd, the average decibel reading, low, was 75.8 with a high of 92.4. Again, a clear violation of the 79 decibels. The loudest sound reading recorded, a low 80.4 with an unbelievable high of 111. Both of these reports were from the North Monitor, which is located at the property line. I did not have time to review the East and West monitors.
Please do.
I will review them.
Yeah. Please.
I did request an open records report from the Franklin Police Department, and as expected, there are numerous complaints of noise. The Common Council needs to stop catering to Rock Ventures and stop the nuisance now. It is affecting hundreds of people in a 2-mile radius. This council voted to limit the decibels to 55 for
3 minutes.
events. This should be enforced. If the venue asks for a higher decibel limit, use the famous words and say, just say no.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to respond quickly, that North Monitor, because I was with Ms. Gint on her driveway after that event on Saturday night, or after I stopped in, there's something malfunctioning, 100% malfunctioning, because you cannot have 100 decibel reading when there was nothing going on. So there is something wrong with the North one.
No,
So I
that
know
was-
you're capturing the North, and I know you want to make that your point, but check the East monitors and the West, and that's where you're going to find that it was not in violation. And we'll be talking about that in item G2.
This is time-stamped, and it
That's fine.
was during the event.
Good evening, and welcome.
Good evening. I'm Heidi Blank. I live at 7126 West Brun Drive. I've had it enough where when the noise is up, I have to turn up my TV in my house with the windows closed, and I can still hear the bass going really loud.
On Sunday, ma'am, or Saturday and Sunday?
It was,
only
I think
Sunday.
Saturday. But I'm getting to the point where, you know, I have to keep my windows and doors closed just to watch TV or watch the news. And this is what's getting me upset. I shouldn't have to.
But you're saying that you experienced it during that event, not on a
Right.
normal daily basis?
Right.
Okay,
So,
we're working on it, thank you. Hello, Mrs. Knoll.
Naomi Knoll, 8610 West Hawthorne Lane. I came here tonight to thank all of you in person for your effort for improving the noise from the Umbrella Bar and the stadium. I really appreciate. There've been a few little glitches, but it's been just a big improvement over the last number of years. And I thank not just our Alder, Jason Craig, and the mayor, Mayor Nelson, but all of the rest of you who and everyone else who came on board. And it had to have taken a lot of effort and time and organization and everything to do all this. So I thank you so far for that. I also would like to thank Mike Atkins from The Rock, who played a big part in reducing and changing the sound, at least by my house, from the Umbrella Bar and The Rock also. As long as you're going to be talking about tacos and tequila, I noticed too in my yard and in my house on Saturday and Sunday for that concert, the bass was loud. And on Saturday and Sunday, it was constant all the way through. though it wasn't as loud at my house as the Umbrella Bar used to be, but it was still there and rather I was disappointed because a number of us gathered in my yard where one of the monitors was, and I thought it was all set, that it was under control. I even went into my house to see if I could hear the sound that they were giving forth at that time, and I didn't really hear it inside or outside, but that did change. So I just want to thank you again for the big improvement that has happened so far. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Knoll.
I gotta check this out. Good evening, Kurt Bolton, 8035 West Imperial Drive. I've got 4 issues, so I know what your stand is on it, but I still believe I should be allowed 3 issues, 3 minutes on each issue, so
Well, it'll be 3 minutes total, sir.
3 minutes total.
Yes,
Yes,
so
3
enjoy.
minutes total. I disagree with that, but I will try. So I assume that my time is starting now. First issue I'd like to talk about is the Rock. I don't always hear music from the Rock. I live roughly 4,900 feet away. When the wind is from the north, I will definitely hear it. There's just no two ways about it. I did make a complaint to the police department about the noise and some of the language that occurred during that time. I did not listen to the whole thing. I only know that towards the end, the noise was, very easily heard. And within about 2 minutes, 3 F-bombs were dropped. I don't find that acceptable. I don't know what the common council finds. But I think this developer has shown a consistent history of ignoring the citizens of Franklin, ignoring the citizens of Greendale, and not taking their needs and desires into account. I think it's time to put a performance bond on this particular development and all the operations that they run, and to make it fiscally reasonable that he will not violate in any way anything that the city asks of him. Item number 2. Item number 13 has no dollar amount or financial justification for the use of funds. I think that is a rather cavalier attitude. It does not include a time limit on it either. I would hope that there would be a little bit more closer restrictions on when money is going to be dispersed, and that the citizens know the reason and the amount and when the time limit is up on those kinds of financial requests. Item number 3, why is number 5 being discussed in closed session? The agreements are public and they should be followed. They can't be changed. These are the agreements that both the developer and the city agreed to. So it is possible that something was not addressed in the original documents. I would like to know, and I think my fellow citizens would like to know what those are and how those issues will be resolved. And I'm asking this not only for myself, but all the citizens of Franklin. If you go into closed session, you are making decisions without our understanding of what the decisions are, how they were arrived at, and I don't think that's right. I think within a month of a closed session, on development issues especially, that should be released in full. The recording should be released in full. If it's an issue about personnel issues or about a legal issue because the city is being sued, I will let you use your judgment on that. Okay, I will sit down and come back up because I have one other issue.
Well, that's Mr. Kleist. Anyone else after Mr. Kleist, please? We want to keep it going.
Andy Kleist, 6025 Parkview Road, Greendale. I guess as far as the North Monitor, I did see violations on there, but you're saying it's malfunctioning.
Absolutely. We're
My
not gonna have
understanding it was
100
working
plus.
perfectly fine on Friday, and so all of a sudden it stopped working Saturday. Was it working on
I
Sunday?
didn't sit there with my phone monitoring it 24/7. However, there is no way, when I went to Dana's, when I drove by past there, you've got the 2 other monitors are 50, 60s, and then all of a sudden that one's at 100, and that's on the north end, and all the noise is pointing south.
Well, I live
Makes-
on the north end too.
I know, but
could
it
hear
makes
the bass
absolutely
at
no
my
sense.
house, so I'm
May
sure
have
that
heard
was
bass.
probably bass.
Well, we're
you guys
going,
listen
we're
to
going to
them?
go
Did you
into it a
listen
little
to the
more. I'm
recordings?
sorry. Go ahead, talk.
Did you listen to the recordings though?
Okay, ready?
Did you listen to the?
Did I
recordings?
listened to some of them, yes. And they were, there was nothing to do with anything with the music that was kicking at that time at 100.
Okay.
It wasn't. And I hate, trust me, Mr. Kleist, I hate sitting up here defending this stuff. I hate it.
Well, I get it.
hope to
It's always
just-
something.
It is. It's all, you're right. It is always something. And we got to fix it. This has to get fixed. I agree. We have to have a reasonable solution, a reasonable outcome, and be done. Because this is just, you know, it's the same thing. And we try to have a great event. I think Saturday was great. Sunday had issues. And, you know, here we are again. It's like Groundhog Day.
Okay.
Horrible.
Okay.
Now I have to say it's a movie, so I don't get sued. So the
Yeah.
Groundhog Day, the movie.
Then my other question is, there was obscene language heard in the neighborhoods.
On Sunday.
So there, it's okay to have it on Sunday, but not Saturday?
No, I'm
The
saying,
event would not happen if there was obscene language heard outside of the property line.
I'm making clarification, Mr. Kleist, that I heard the reports on Sunday, not Saturday.
Okay.
I'm just drawing the
Right.
conclusion.
So I'm hoping in the report today that there's going to be something about possibly not having an event next year because what you said wouldn't happen did happen, and that it wasn't going to happen if that happened. So,
I was crystal clear in my strong stance that I would not tolerate that type of, and we all were in agreement. I mean, you don't want that. There's no place for
okay.
that.
Yeah, and you said the event would not happen if that was the case.
Well, I was not going to cancel it on Sunday. How is
you
that going to
can
happen?
Cancel it next year.
So next year, that will be addressed. That will be addressed by the promoters. 100% yes.
Thank you.
Dana Gint, 9011 West Hawthorne Lane. I just want to echo a couple of the comments that were made by other representatives here. The Mayor Nelson reads before every meeting the rules of decorum, that you have to refrain from profanity and offensive language. But the neighbors surrounding this development on Saturday and Sunday, there are recordings for both days, unfortunately, Mayor Nelson, that people have recordings of the profanity at Saturday and Sunday of offensive language. So it did happen, and I know you made a dedication in front of the 12 people at the sound check that that event would not be allowed next year if they did, you know, operate that way. As far as like a gentleman mentioned the agreements that were established years ago, in that agreement, in the TID agreement, there was a $100,000 allocation to address the noise and light mitigation plans. So I know there's been $46,000 spent towards that. So why don't you use another $50,000 to move the monitors to more appropriate locations and address the noise issue further? I do have a question about to the city attorney, if he could address that during item G2, is when a resolution is approved, is that immediately acted upon? Does that become, I guess, enforceable at that moment? Because the March 5th resolution regarding the noise standards, and it's resolution 2024-8109, establishes that the receiving district determines the decibel level, which is 50 decibels during the day and 45 at night. I understand special exceptions can be made, but, and I was watching all the monitors because, you know, that's what I do. And yes, it is. And it just wasn't the north monitor that had extreme levels. I didn't see 101 at the east or west monitor, but it was above. And so your report doesn't say anything about violations. So I guess my question is, where are the list of violations that occurred? And the sheet says that the limit was set at the sound study, at the sound check. The limit was set at 65 decibels for 10 seconds. That's not correct. It was an average of 65 decibels for 10 seconds. So when I was watching the West monitor, it'd be 50 decibels and then it jump up to 72 and do that for 10 seconds. So obviously that would be a violation if it did span over 10 seconds above 65 decibels. And I want to appreciate Alderman Craig and Alderman Eichman for coming to the neighborhood on Sunday to experience how loud it was. I know Alderman Eichman mentioned that she had multiple complaints about the language, and she actually heard it herself a mile away. So obviously the decibel levels need to be addressed, and then that would help alleviate the, you know, language issues and content issues. So I'm hoping that the noise can continue to be lowered, and then the bass is obviously a problem too, not only for the umbrella events, but also for the other concerts and events. So I'd appreciate your help. Continue to work on this. Thank you.
I'm not going to make a scene. I'm not going to make a scene. I
Make
just
sure you
think
state your name and address again, please. And then
Curtis Bolton, 8035 West Imperial Drive, Franklin, Wisconsin. I'm not going to make a big issue here. I just think it's wrong that if I have more than one issue to talk about, that I can't have 3 minutes to express all of the concerns I have. I would like to hear from each common council member what their thoughts are on as well, as to whether it should be longer than that, or it should be 3 minutes for each item. I'll be waiting. You've got my address, you've got my email address, you've got just about everything. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing no one at this time, we'll close citizen comment period. Moving on to C, approval of minutes, regular common council meeting minutes of June 18th, 2024. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Oh, boy. This is going to be an issue. All right, so we'll give Alderman Barber the second. Who are the first? Mr. Craig. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. There's about a second and a half delay. Oh, boy. All right, so now we're going to go to G2. Excuse me, G2 Rock Ventures Tacos and Tequila and Phase Fest post-event review. I'd like to, well, the information's here. One of the things, and I'm going to also bring in Madam Director of Administration at some point to chime in on this, as well as other members of the council. And I know that there was, I attended on Saturday. We did the sound check on Friday, and I was there about an hour and a half-ish. Then I drove through the neighborhood to the west, saw no parking issues at all, no parking, talked to some neighbors that were out there. Continued my drive west, ran to Ms. Gint, and then I also saw, and that's where we were looking at the sound monitors, and that's where there was definitely something wrong with that north monitor. And I too just want to get this stuff up, running, fixed, as transparent as we can. Here's the monitor, and have at it. And we need to get that part done. Now, I guess, and I don't want to call the fire chief and the police chief out, I think that, but as far as the calls for service and such, am I going to just read this whole thing straight down for everybody? Let's see here. Emergency medical services, Franklin Fire, calls for service 8. Patients transport to the hospital 4. And there's some mutual aid. That was in 2023. 2024. Let's see, calls for service 6. Patients transported 2. No mutual aid request. Phase Fest on Sunday, the 23rd. For the fire department's calls for service were 2. And patients transported were 2. In 2023, Franklin Fire Department did not have EMS personnel standing by at the concert venue, and all the resources and personnel responded from the city's fire stations and at the request of the private event EMS provider at Franklin Field. At times, the multiple calls for service at the concert significantly depleted Franklin's on-duty fire and EMS resources. Mutual aid paramedic units from neighboring jurisdictions responded to assist. 2024, and I think, and I'm going to touch on a few things other than just reading this verbatim. It's like that death by PowerPoint type thing. But 2024 assigned 5 personnel to the event to provide a commanding officer in the Unified Command Post, on-site advanced life support, which is ALS, and first response to the parking lot, roadways, and other areas outside the fence perimeter of Franklin Field. Working in concert with to provide event EMS provider. Personnel at the event could provide a fast initial response and limit the number of resources pulled from Franklin Fire Stations. Additionally, there were no requests for mutual aid assistance related to the concert events. So 2023, police after action, there were 18 noise complaints made by 15 different callers. 0 arrests. Let's see here. Several ejections, medical rescue 9, parking complaints 2. That was in 2023, 2024. Noise complaints, there were 8. 6 complaints made to the PD, 2 made online, City Hall. Complaints received by the police department occurred between 16:10, so that's 4:10 p.m. to 20:21 hours, 8:21 p.m. Rock Representative Chris Conley advised at 16:19 hours. There were 2 arrests. One was by the Sheriff's Department with OWI, which I believe I talked to the chief, that was actually outside the, it wasn't at the event proper. Franklin PD, disorderly conduct while armed on the VIP parking lot afterwards. There were 5 ejections. Phase Fest on Sunday, noise complaints 25. 19 complaints made to Franklin PD, 6 complaints made online to City Hall. Complaints received by Franklin PD occur between 3:54 PM and 9:27 PM. The nature of the complaints varied from loud music to obscenities being shouted by performers and concert attendees. Rock Representative Chris Conley advised at 3:54 PM. Again, there's 0 on Sunday. There were 0 arrests and 1 ejection. I know we're going to open this up a little bit. I know couple of the big things that were handled, which was great, was the whole traffic in, egress, post. So you have the parking, the traffic seemed to be much, much better this year. There weren't issues coming in, coming out. It was much under control. Seemed like it was much more organized in that manner. Granted, the weather turned bad later in the evening, which caused everybody to evacuate and vacate the area. So that's that part. Personal note, as the Sunday, how that noise traveled, along with the profanities that were observed and complained upon, that is absolutely, there's no reason to have that. There's no reason that that's acceptable. Every one of these bands that has some sort of recording contract and have sold this out to music venues, they make these CDs and everything else, if I'm dating myself by saying a CD. But when they're making these things, they're not using profanity on them because there's advisories. I'm not a fan. We're looking into that to where it's going to be. Now, I'm going to yield for a minute while we have others on the council and there's other coming chime in with Madam Director. So Alderwoman Eichman.
Thank you, Mayor. Just real briefly, I also wanted to thank the DPW for the additional parking signs I requested this year, which include putting no parking signs on Terrace and, although not my district, Brun Drive in District 5. Briefly wanted to also thank Mike Atkins. Anytime I tried to reach him throughout that weekend, he was readily available, responded to me within seconds, if not minutes. Thank the ROC for taking the appropriate evacuation measures on Saturday evening. We take a smaller venue such as the ROC as compared to a large venue at Summerfest. I understand there was some confusion at Summerfest whether they should evacuate. They did, then they didn't. I like how the ROC handled the evacuation process. Of course, special thanks to the Franklin Fire Department, Franklin Police Department, also the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Department, as throughout the weekend I saw 1, if not 2 Milwaukee County Sheriffs sitting on the side of Rawson monitoring everything. Saturday, I personally received 1 and only 1 complaint on tacos and tequila that was from a resident on Hawthorne. And Sunday, I received multiple complaints as I was in communication with you, Mayor, and appreciate that you were also available for alders as well on Sunday, as you always are. I heard from many residents within my district that have never had complaint about noise from the ROC before. The main concerns were, of course, as mentioned, the bass as well as the profanity used. I don't feel that was appropriate. We are taking proper measures to have things changed for next year. I do not want children within my district or any district anywhere in this city of Franklin to be outside playing on a Sunday afternoon and to have to hear that type of language. It's just not acceptable, is my personal thought. And with that, I will yield. Thank you.
One thing I'd like to add is the attendance for Saturday's event was 8,000, and the attendance for Sunday's event was 5,900. So I just wanted to add that as the numbers I received from ROC. Anyone else?
Mayor Nelson?
Yes, Alderman Barber.
Mayor Nelson?
You've got the floor, sir.
Okay. For the very first time on Sunday, my wife and I experienced hearing music coming from Phase Fest. We couldn't hear the words as such, but we heard the bass and we heard the singing and the loud music. And based on what my constituents that live closer in have complained about the language, I would recommend that we do not allow Phase Fest to happen next year. I think that should be there should be a sanction put on it based upon what they violated in terms of the citizens as well as our ordinances. So that's my thought.
Okay. Anyone else up here wish to say anything?
Sir.
Alderman Craig.
I'd like to echo a lot of the gratitude towards personnel and staff that worked incredibly hard with the event itself. Health Department, the DPW, for their execution on the no parking signs, especially on Hawthorne. I also am pleased to learn that Tacos and Tequila can apparently give us rain whenever we book that, or whenever it's booked, because 2 years in a row and 2 years we get monsoon type of event that comes with it. But I am also very much disappointed by what happened on Sunday, and I think that there is growth that needs to happen. I think that there was a great deal of growth from 23 to 24 as far as the behaviors that we saw and experienced and what we got out of that. And I think that that there is possibilities for growth, but I think that there also needs to be lessons learned as a result of what happened this year. So that would, I'm assuming, will be something that will be discussed next year in licensing, as far as what sort of what the event will look like, at least from our side, and what we will be asking of Social House Entertainment and of our friends at Rock Ventures. But there needs to be a level of accountability that needs to be put forward, and that is what we are tasked with in licensing and as a council as a whole, and that would be where we need to look forward to. Hearing from Ms. Knoll as far as the progress that city and Rock Ventures have made thus far as trying to find common ground and being able to live together with, for lack of a better term, harmony, I think is real progress. And it cannot be something that we just accept as, well, this is what it is now, and this is just the way it's going to be. We have to continue to work forward for more progress in the future. So I look forward to seeing better progress, better events that we all learn from and be able to kind of grow with as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess what I like to see is just a motion to receive and place on file. However, what that would mean would be this synopsis, the complaints, be put in that file, because this is going to come back next year, and that way everything remains fresh. I know I spoke with 6 citizens that had complained to me. Actually spoke. We talked on the phone, echoing exactly what we heard again tonight about Sunday. So with this isn't going unnoticed, unkept, so we are moving forward with that. So is there a motion to receive and place on file with the instructions that it go into the actual file?
So moved.
Second.
First and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, officer. Unless you want to hang. G3, an ordinance to amend 15-3.0433 of the United Development Ordinance, Plan Development District Number 28, Polish Festivals, Inc., Polish Community Center, to allow for a welcome center and changes to the Healing Garden and nature trails at the Conservancy for Healing and Heritage, Conservancy for Healing and Heritage, Inc., Susan A. Robbie, CEO and Executive Director, applicant, 6941 South 68th Street. Good evening, Marion X.
Thank you, Mayor. Is my mic on?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. So this item is a minor PDD amendment to PDD 28 to allow for the development of a new building at the Conservancy for Healing and Heritage that will include event space and offices for the nonprofit that runs that facility. Currently, they're housed elsewhere in the city in another office building. It's not convenient to the location, obviously, and this will add to the event space that's available. They're also proposing some changes to the trails and to the landscaping. The site plan for this was already approved, contingent on the approval of this minor PDD amendment at Plan Commission. And so the requirement here today is that we make this amendment to the ordinance that controls the development standards for the PDD in order to allow for that. So
Okay.
if there's any questions from the commission, otherwise Ms. Robbie is here to talk a little bit more about the development if needed. We did make some changes to the draft ordinance from that which was presented at Plan Commission to conform to some concerns of the city attorney, and I'm happy to answer any questions as well.
If no questions, there's a motion here. Anyone have a
I'd
motion?
like to make the motion to
I
adopt.
second.
First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Alderman Barber?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Excellent. G4, resolution approving the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources NR-208 Compliance Maintenance Report for 2023. Is a motion on here?
I'll make the motion, Mayor.
second.
Thank you. First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. I got to make sure I hesitate myself. G5 and Alderman D6, resolution authorizing certain officials to accept a landscape buffer yard easement for and as part of the approval of a certified survey map upon property located at 11607 West Ryan Road, Boomtown LLC, property owner.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. City Attorney, hold on.
Subject to technical changes with regard to the signature execution provisions.
So is that the amended motion?
Please and thank you.
In the landscape buffer yard easement.
So what exactly would you like the motion to say, sir?
Motion to adopt the resolution, et cetera, as stated on the action sheet,
Okay.
subject to technical changes to the signature execution provisions on the landscape buffer yard easement.
Mr. Craig?
That would be my motion. Please and thank you.
And I will keep my second, Mayor.
First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. G6, D6, resolution authorizing certain officials to accept a conservation easement for and as part of the approval of a certified survey map upon property located at 11607 West Ryan Road.
So moved.
Is there anything you want to change to that, sir?
Next one.
Is there a change in this?
No,
What's the exact same, 5 and 6 are the exact same?
no.
Conservation.
Good, all right, so we got a
Conservation
first and a
easement.
second, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. G7, authorize the professional services agreement between the City of Franklin and Konica Minolta Business Solutions USA, all covered to provide external and internal penetration testing and reporting services, funded by account number 01-0144-5299. Good evening, Mr. Director of IT Services.
Hello there. The vendor did not write the contract as requested. Therefore, I'm requesting that this item be tabled, and I will bring it back at a later date.
Excellent. Is there a motion to table?
Motion to table.
Let's
Second.
take it back.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. This item will be tabled. Are you thinking next meeting, sir? Or? Thank you. G8, Federal Emergency Management Agency's floodplain insurance rate maps firm and City of Franklin floodplain ordinance. Good evening again, Ms. X.
Thank you, Mayor. So as the council may be aware, we have an ordinance that regulates development within the floodplain. It's based on requirements set by the Federal Emergency Management Agency in order to participate in their federal insurance program for flood-prone properties. We have reached the point where we are required to update this ordinance. Other communities surrounding us have already done so, but there was an appeal of our maps, which delayed our process by 1 year. So we have to adopt an ordinance that meets their requirements by October 24th of this year, which is their deadline for their review. Functionally, the city has to adopt the ordinance before September 24th in order to meet all the dependent steps that are required there. So I provided some information to the council, just a background on the existing ordinance and what floodplain ordinances generally regulate. But I'm seeking direction from the Common Council today on 2 items that are related to the draft ordinance that planning is producing at this time. Those 2 items are participation in Act 175, which regulates non-conforming structures in the flood zones, and then participation in what's referred to as the community rating system, which is an option to obtain discounts and better rates on insurance for participants based on the city's additional work to meet the criteria of that program. So to just touch more in depth on what Act 75 is, so for clarity, a non-conforming structure is something that was constructed within a zoning district, or in this case, within the floodplain, prior to the enactment of the ordinance that's regulating it now. So if there is a shed or a home that was constructed within a floodplain, you know, in 1980, and then the flood maps were adopted and included that property would be what's called legal non-conforming, which you may have also heard the term grandfathered. We choose to use the word legal non-conforming. However, there are restrictions on how much you can change that property over time and whether or not you can change the use over time or discontinue the use. So participation in Act 175, some of you may have heard of the 50% rule that applies to non-conforming structures. What that means is if someone improves the structure, like if they added another story, if they added a bathroom, over and above 50% of the equalized assessed value, so it changes over time how much the house is worth. If you go over and above 50% at any point, then you have to come into compliance with the zoning ordinance. This Act 175 gives communities the option to not participate in or require that. So it would mean that we don't have to track the equalized assessed value of these properties. There are 144 properties in the floodplain. There are pros and cons to this. In some ways, it will be more restrictive for property owners. It might require them to come into compliance sooner. But then the flip side is, you know, that it would be easier for us to track. And then once the structure has come into compliance with the design regulations related to nonconformities, then it would continue in its legal nonconforming status. Without having to be changed further. So it's something that I can present with multiple options when we bring forward the full draft of the ordinance, but I'm seeking direction as to whether or not you have a preference at this time, so that if I don't have to do that, I won't, but more to the point, I'd like to know what you think about it. So
I will open up and I'll speak last. Mr. Barber, do you have anything on this?
No.
So my question is, obviously I get the same complaints, whether people want to build an outbuilding, they want to put up a fence. We have the same kind of handful of complaints that come in. When it comes to an outbuilding, now when we talk about legal non-conforming, so I have a shed in my backyard, okay? Now, if I have that shed and it's been there literally since probably 1948, there's always been a shed there when a house was built. And if I would like to replace it, is this going to make this more restrictive, or is this going to make it easier? Or if I'm not in a floodplain, doesn't matter?
if you're not in a floodplain, that it would be regulated a little bit differently. So this specifically pertains to structures in the floodplain. So imagine a shed in the floodplain. If you wanted to alter the shed in any way, currently, if you were to do more work to it than 50% of the value, like if you put, $25 worth of siding on a $50 shed, then you would be required to bring it into conformity, which means you'd have to raise it above the base flood elevation, et cetera. Or you could choose to bring it into conformity and we would stop tracking the value of the shed. So it's more applicable to businesses and homes than it is to these small accessory structures. And a large percentage of the structures in the floodplain are accessory structures. But yeah, it's kind of, the DNR has interpreted this as being less restrictive for homeowners, but my interpretation is that they would be required to come into compliance sooner as a result. So It's a little bit confusing on that.
As I'm 100% behind less restrictive, given, the people that want to build something on their property. And, we have the same situation with a gentleman in my district that's, has a 7 point whatever acre lot and couldn't put an outbuilding on it. And I hear it quite often. And that's this type of thing is to try to fix that, in my opinion, or address it to where we got to be reasonable. But if this isn't something completely different,
Yeah, this won't affect new development. So any new structure that's developed, it has to conform with whatever the current ordinance is. So once we adopt this new ordinance, the maps are not changing. Most of the changes to the proposed ordinance are not actually changing what's required of developers. It's clarifying how you quantify that you've met the floodplain requirements. So this Act 175 item is a question of, for existing buildings, will it be required to come into conformance sooner or not?
okay, thank you. Alderman Craig.
My question is more for the scope of the 144 buildings that you mentioned. How many of those are accessory buildings and how many are actual buildings, homes, businesses, et cetera?
I don't know that number off the top of my head. It's
Okay.
something that we actually are required to also track the uses of those buildings, and we haven't quite figured out the best way to do that yet. So I'll get back to you.
So if we were, say we were going to disregard 175, then if someone wants to do those upgrades to their buildings, that isn't something that A, you're tracking as far as the assessed value of those, and I think a home is one thing, I think, where if a large plurality of buildings are those accessory buildings, I think that becomes so much more of a not wise use of your time, of anyone else in planning, as far as that goes. So I'm really kind of curious as far as that goes, because if we don't have to track, let's just say like 60 accessory buildings, and all we have to do is say we're not going to be part of 175, I think that's a smart move on our end. But I do think that the FEMA rating system, being that part of it, since we're already doing a lot of that work already, I think ignoring the 175, now granted, that's only if we have, like I said, a large number of buildings that are not part of it at the moment. That's kind of, because if it is, two large subdivisions, and of the 144, it's 120 of them are homes, I think then that really makes it more prudent to be a participant in 175, but that's my own personal kind of view as far as this goes. I just think the ticky-tack sort of stuff of sheds and like a doghouse or something like that, just being smaller properties with very little value that needs to be kind of continually tracked, I don't think is a smart use of your time or anyone else within the city as far as that goes. That's my thoughts on this.
So any further discussion on this before should we look for an amended motion on this then?
I'm seeking direction also on the discount program, the community rating system as well. So is there comment on that? The brief background is that within the existing ordinance, we have some higher standards in Franklin for natural resource protection compared to other communities, and are already doing most of the activities required to have the most basic level of participation in CRS. Alderwoman Day did ask me a question today by email about whether or not that's something that staffing would be able to continuously do over time to maintain participation, because it's something you have to continuously certify. And I will note that the CAV, the next item on the agenda, is the result of not being able to enforce the floodplain ordinance effectively up to pretty recently. So that is a reasonable concern, that we could implement a program and then have it taken away from residents. I can provide more information about the program and again draft some options for you. But if you have direction now, it's potentially a significant savings to community members, but it also requires more staff time the more things we do. So.
Well, looking at it as it sits then, I'm and you brought a lot of information, thank you. And you always do, you're very thorough in how we go through this. I just know that we get a lot of complaints. I know I did as an Alderman D6, that's the wide open space, the Wild West in some areas, and people want to put up outbuildings and do everything else, and then they get, slapped. And we don't want to have that. We want to have people have the options to do things. So if passing this makes it, as any streamlining and makes it a little more, it's easier and a little more, here, this is what it is, and here's how you're going to get it done quicker, I'm supporting of that. And if this motion stands as it stands, is what you're looking for, then I would ask that some support the motion.
Can we ask the city attorney to make an amended motion? Because we do need an amended motion, correct?
Well, not necessarily.
If to change.
I think that Marion has heard what the council is interested in and is going to bring this back, so I don't know that a motion is needed.
Yeah, I wasn't seeking a motion or a particular action, just sort of general information and direction from you this evening. And then I will be bringing forward the full text of the ordinance for adoption later in the summer. So we'll have, hopefully we can get through it at that first meeting, but we have a little bit of time budgeted. So it also has to go to Plan Commission first in order to have a public hearing, so.
Okay. So I think what we heard tonight was come forth with more information, and we'll do that. There's no motion tonight. So then we'll move on to item G9. Federal Emergency Management Agency's floodplain violation resolution program update.
Thank you, Mayor. And this is a related update on what's referred to as the community assistance visit. So we were contacted by the DNR in 2022 because there have been a number of structures constructed within the floodplain that did not proceed through the necessary steps in order to obtain approval of those structures in the floodplain. So we conducted a number of inspections, so thank you very much to the engineering department for their help with that. Brad from engineering went and visited all of the sites but one. We did receive permission to inspect that site via drone. We're in the process of drafting what we're referring to as action plans for each site. So today I'm just bringing this forward today so that you know that your constituents that were on that list of people that may have items still in the floodplain will be receiving letters with what is required in order to come into conformance. So again, in some cases, they may choose to remove the structure. They're often like sheds and things like that. In other cases, they may have to go through an approval process, which requires a land use permit through my department. And then any other necessary permitting in the city. So the structures vary in nature from, like I said, a shed to a retaining wall, et cetera. In some cases, people didn't seek permits at all for those structures. And so that will have to be resolved as well. And in other cases, there was not a permit required due to the nature of the structure. And we're working to make sure that at least a basic review of floodplain requirements is done before any structure is placed in, if it needs a permit, it needs to be reviewed for floodplain compliance. I've done several of those reviews already, and the community seems to be pretty capable of responding to those requirements. So I don't have a lot of concerns in that area. So just be aware that some of your constituents may be receiving letters, and I'm happy to answer questions about this project otherwise, so.
Any comments? If not, there's a motion to receive and place on file.
I make the motion to receive and place on file.
First and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. G10. City of Franklin's Community Development Block Grant Program projects for 2025. Madam Hirsch.
This is just a standard agreement that we have yearly. So we brought this forward last year around this time. We received money from the county and we provide them with a list of areas that we would like to allocate the grant money to. And nothing has changed over the years, certainly not since last year.
Okay. Any questions? There is a motion listed.
I'd like to make the motion.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is that an aye, Alderman Barber?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. G11. An ordinance to amend the Unified Development Ordinance text at Table 153.0603, Standard Industrial Classification, Title Number 8661, Religious Organizations, to allow such use as a permitted use in the B4 South 27th Street Mixed-Use Commercial District and CC City Civic Center District, and as a special use in the OL-2 General Business Overlay District and P1 Park District, as well as unclassified use church or other place of worship, as a permitted use in the B4 District, CC District, 1I-1 Institutional District, as well as a special use in the OL-2 District and P1 Park District, City of Franklin applicant. This is, who's taking this one? Oh, good evening, Marion, again.
Thank you, Mayor. And I want to acknowledge the work of Principal Planner Martinez and Assistant Planner Hamel on this item. I actually am not one of the people that primarily worked on it, but I'm here tonight, so hi. So this is an ordinance. This was brought up as a proposal by Houseel Levine during a review of the UDO update because our current ordinances do not comply with federal regulations related to land use for religious institutions. So there is an act of Congress, the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act, otherwise known as RLUPA, which basically means that you have to qualify any house of worship in the same way that you would classify a non-religious assembly. It's essentially a freedom of religion act. So it bars unreasonable or total exclusion of religious structures in communities. And so what's before you this evening is a text amendment to update the use table of our current development ordinance in order to allow for those religious land uses as described. So basically what we did is we took the table and said if this type of assembly, just if 100 people can gather here, if it's allowed in use district, et cetera, then it will likewise be allowing of a place of worship or how is this otherwise being described, as a house of worship. So, and then transpose that same set of uses to the other districts so that it's just consistency across the board. So this change, this required update will be incorporated into the new UDO, but because we're not currently in compliance, we brought it forward a little bit sooner to make sure that we aren't violating federal law. So are there any questions?
So move.
We have a first. Is there a second on the
I'll
motion?
second.
We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you for explaining that. G12, this will be a roll call vote. An ordinance to amend ordinance 2023-2569, an ordinance adopting the 2024 annual budget for the general fund to transfer $5,933 of contingency appropriations to fire department building maintenance systems appropriations for unplanned facility repairs at Fire Station 1 and 3. Look at this, coming on strong. Madam Director of Finance, you want to start?
Sure. This is just a budget amendment that I'm sure these two gentlemen will be speaking about. There's some necessary repairs to Fire Stations 1 and 3, their HVAC system and some others that we're needing to use some contingency monies.
Okay, Chief, good evening.
Yeah, good evening. Good evening. So our request, like Madam Director of Finance mentioned, we have had several unplanned repairs at all three of our fire stations this year. Most recently, we had a clogged pipe at Station 3, a main drain that had to be snaked out and video scoped and repaired. And then most recently, one of our air conditioners, we have 4 air conditioning units at Fire Station number 1 with different zones. And of course, with the start of the hot weather, the air conditioning condenser that handles the central part of the building, including the shift commander's office, the dorm area, has failed. So that's what our request is entailing. What we did want to highlight was that we do support the overall building maintenance plan that's going to be brought to council, led by Johnson Controls. Our HVAC systems were identified as aging, and we'd really like to get ahead of it so that we don't have to bring unscheduled repairs to the council for contingency fund use.
Thank you.
We're happy to answer any questions.
I'd like to make the motion to adopt the ordinance.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. This is a roll call vote.
Alderman Craig,
Aye.
Alderman Barber,
Aye.
Alderman Hassan,
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichmann.
Aye.
5 ayes, no noes, 1 absent. Motion carries. Thank you. What? Oh, 4 ayes. Request Common Council authorization to utilize unrestricted contingency funds for unplanned emergency facility repairs at fire stations 1 and 3. Continuation?
Yes.
There is a motion here.
Make the motion to approve.
We got a first, we have a second.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Is there a roll call on this or not? Good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief and Assistant Chief. G14, a resolution to certify a non-traditional project administration delivery for the Putes Pathway, Wisconsin Department of DOT project ID number 2976-04-01/71 for a pathway project along West Putes Road from West St. Martin's Road to South 76th Street. Mr. City Engineer.
So, as I mentioned before, we got the TAP grant for the Putes Road project. DOT will not be doing the project. This is not one of their projects, but the city's doing it. So, I was certified in 2022, so my certification is still good. That means that we can oversee the project. We do need a resolution saying that we do intend to oversee the project in accordance with all rules and regulations. Notice in the analysis, I mentioned there on the second paragraph in analysis, staff welcomes recommendation on the alderman who may want to participate in the interview process. We received at least 4, maybe 5 submittals, so I would suggest Alderwoman Eichmann and whoever takes the Alderman 1 spot would be good to sit in on the would be good to actually evaluate the proposal. So we have to select based on qualifications.
I do have a question on this. So,
Sure.
moving forward, so right now, we're looking at, you still haven't really put a discussion point yet for this north or south side of the street.
It is my intention to have the consultant do that the first thing, kind
Okay.
of do an evaluation. So, I mean, we can all have our opinions, but maybe one side is a lot more expensive than the other, so we need to have that.
Yeah, that's what I'm
discussion.
looking at, because
Yeah.
I know the overwhelming, I've got input was on the south side of the street. That's the overwhelming input I've received on it. So I'd be interested to find out what this consultant says.
So, but first we have to select the consultant and get them started.
Got it, I got you. Alderwoman Eichmann.
I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, Glenn, but after it is decided with the consultant, I'd like to have another neighborhood meeting with District 2 and District 1, just to a question and answer type meeting, and maybe at the Fader Room at the library,
And-
explain what the consultant, and maybe have the consultant there as well.
And
Explain the choice, the reasoning why we're going to put it either on the south side or the north side.
So that's a very good discussion point. When we select a consultant, make sure that they include that in their scope of services.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Let's see here. Is there a motion on this?
I'd like to make the motion.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. G15, results of the Department of Public Works sale of surplus vehicles and equipment. This is review only. Anybody have any questions on this? Is there a motion to receive and place on file?
So moved.
So moved.
First and seconded by Mr. Barber. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. G16, a resolution to award a 2024 DPW expansion at 7979 West Ryan Road, tax key number 896-9990-001 to Chemacy Incorporated in the amount of $2,827,700. Mr. Morrow.
So we bid this project as directed. If you recall, the first project was a separate building. Project is an expansion to the existing facility. We received 4 bids. Not every contractor submitted quotes for all the areas. So once we received bids, we looked at the items that we really could fit in with our budget, and we're proposing that we recommend Pomosi Incorporated. We will do the site fencing. We will do the main building addition. We will do the base bid site utilities. We will do the base bid south building bay extension. And then, so that's a total package of $2,827,700. And note that some of this money will also actually be paid for by the utility, the ARPA funds, the DPW utility project.
Questions on this?
And this did go through Plan Commission last week, so it got the site plan approval. That's why it's here today.
Your motion?
Make the motion to approve.
Mr. Hassan?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Barber. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. G17, love G17. Establish 2024 trick or treat. Alderwoman Eichman.
Thank you, Mayor. Proposing that the 2024 trick-or-treat date remains on a Saturday. It seemed to be very well perceived last year. Many neighborhoods came together. I know myself was invited to at least 3 neighborhood gatherings within my district where neighbors all congregated on their street or in their cul-de-sacs and hosted an event, brought neighbors together, neighbors that got to meet each other that have never met each other before. It was very well perceived. I received several requests that we do bring it back again on a Saturday. Main purpose is it's not a school night. Kids aren't going home eating a bunch of candy and then having to get up for school the next day. It may seem calendar-wise, for those that don't have their October 2024 calendar in front of them, a bit early, but to have it the week after Halloween, we're far into November, weather gets colder, snow can happen, and so forth. So with that being said, I would like to make the motion to have it on Saturday, October 26, 2024, from 4 to 7.
I will second that.
Second.
We have a first and we have a second by Alderman Barber. Any further discussion? I would definitely like to add that I agree with Alderwoman Eichman. I did attend, well, I wasn't invited to anything, but I did crash a number of things. But I was in costume, so nobody knew it was me. It was a joke. And I did enjoy some of those. It did bring the neighborhood together. It was great. So excellent. So we have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can I add one more thing with that, Mayor?
Well, we had the vote, but
Oh, that's fine. Just for those listening and those that may not be aware, it may seem,
okay. Well, there was the case, so we had nobody opposed, ayes have it, motion.
Oh, you didn't ask him.
Oh, well, I didn't, okay, so what we'll do, we're gonna, further discussion, then I'm gonna go back to it. I know you love this part, go ahead, quickly.
just quickly wanted to mention the reason why we're discussing trick or treat before the 4th of July is due to the city newsletter that's only published quarterly, so that it makes the next edition of the city newsletter.
Thank you. Let's do a roll call vote on this, please, Madam Clerk, Madam Deputy Clerk. The motion is to establish Saturday, October 26, 2024, from 4 to 7 p.m. for the Halloween trick or treat observance in the city of Franklin. It's got of treat, so it should be or trick or treat. We had a first and a second. Roll call, please. We're going to do a roll call vote on this.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderman Craig.
No.
3 ayes, 1 no, 2 absent. 1 vacant, 1 absent. Thank you, Counselor. Motion carries. G18, motion to authorize the Director of Health and Human Services to accept the Division of Public Health Consolidated contract to continue funding Health Department grants.
So moved.
Mr. Barber's the motion maker. Mr. Craig seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Ayes have it. Motion carries. G19, amendment to the authorization for the Director of Health and Human Services to execute a contract with Metro Sound and Video for the 2024 Health Wing AV System project to change the insurance provisions and to add contractor contact and project start date information.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
hold on, Mr. City Attorney, please someone hit the button for him.
Did already.
I know, you're perfect.
Went up and back, communicated with the Director of Health Services Friday, I think yesterday, today, and did a quick check on what's in the packet. It's not what was exchanged between us. I would just say to adopt the motion and at the end, include in the motion and any further changes approved by the Director of Health Services, Director of Administration, and the City Attorney. And that's because changes were made between us after the packet went out, and I don't see a handout here for it.
Okay, is that the amended motion?
Please and thank you.
Who was the second on that?
Alderman Craig.
Yeah.
I
who
was the
first?
first. My motion holds.
Okay, thank you. We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. G20, February 2024 monthly financial report. Madam Director of Finance.
Hello. So financial reports, I'm getting back on track with getting those done on a monthly basis. The February and March financial report went to the Finance Committee on June 25th, and they recommended acceptance. I hope you had some time to go through it. It's a lot of information. A couple things I can point out. In February, our cash and investments were sitting at roughly $64 million. Landfill siting revenue is coming in. It's the beginning of the year, so things are just starting to take off. Ambulance revenues started off strong, building permits collected started off strong, and obviously investment income started off at 5.5% collection, so we were seeing some healthy investment income there. Debt service payments were made in the beginning of March. All of our TID districts, I provided an annual report a few months ago. Capital outlay and all of our capital funds. The health department has ordered a new vehicle. The new phone system has been implemented. The police department has ordered their vehicles. All the resources have come in for the capital funds. The street improvement program contract had not been placed at the time of the February and March financial report. However, it has been placed now. We have some major projects taking place in our capital improvement fund. The fiber optic network project is just about complete, if not complete already. We have some highway projects, park improvements, DOT projects, the big 116th Street Trail project, and then the school traffic light project. There has been little to no activity in our development or utility development fund, and our self-insurance fund has started off to be fairly healthy. We're down about $300,000 in our claims, and you'll see even in March that's dropped even more. And then our retiree health fund is stable and has just continued to receive gains throughout the month. So if anybody has any questions.
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to thank you.
Sure.
Make the motion to receive.
Okay, we've got a motion to receive and place on file. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Alderwoman Eichman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. G21, authorize staff to add the Roth option to 2 additional 457B plans already offered by the City of Franklin.
Make the motion to authorize.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. G22, March 2024 monthly financial report. Madam Director of Finance.
Okay. So again, nothing has changed much from February to March. Our tax settlements were sent out for January and February to the taxing jurisdictions. Transportation aid was collected. Engineering fees were collected over budget. As far as tipping resources, those have been running even to budget. The fire department sold their E-113, so those proceeds were put into the equipment replacement fund as well as DPW vehicles and equipment that were sold. The fire department ordered their battalion chief vehicle and their interim replacement ambulance, and then the highway department ordered their front end loader. Again, not much other activity unless you guys have any other questions from February to March.
Is there a motion to receive and place on file?
So moved.
Mr. Craig, seconded by Alderwoman Eichman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. G23, a resolution to submit non-participating letter to Wisconsin DOT for utility adjustments and installation of a pathway along State Highway 100, West Ryan Road from South 60th Street to West St. Martin's Road in the amount of this is something amended here?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, look at this. In the amount of $89,355. Mr. Morrow.
So next year, DOT will be tearing up State Trunk Highway 100 from 60th Street to Loomis. Correct, but it's been modified.
There's an amended one, and you're welcome to have mine, because I didn't see it anyway.
So staff learned from DOT that, so if you recall, we had this agreement in place so the city was going to build a trail, and that was where the $1.4 million came from. We also have some utility adjustment work, so we're adjusting manholes and doing some other things like that. Utility staff made the decision that they would prefer that the DOT contractor does this work for us. So because that's a change of scope, they wanted to modify the agreement. Today, staff found out from DOT that instead of using the $1.4 million figure, they want to just have the agreement reflect what's needed for the utility information. So there's about $25,000 of it that was in that $1.4 million, but this change of scope, there's an additional $89,355 that they would like to do an agreement. So depending on who you talk to at DOT, this is or is not even needed, but there's enough people thought that it was needed. Just to make sure we cross our T's and dot our I's. So I'm going to ask you to look at the amended at your place tonight for the $89,000. This is really for utility work. Has nothing to do with the pathway.
Is there a motion?
Point.
We'll talk, yes.
Okay.
I'd like to make the motion to authorize staff to submit non-participating letter to the Wisconsin Department of Transportation for utility adjustments and installation of a pathway along State Highway 100 from South 60th Street to West St. Martin's Road in the amount of $89,355.00.
I'll second that.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. G24, approve revisions to the Personnel Committee Administrative Rules and Procedures to allow for employee participation at Personnel Committee meetings.
So moved.
We have a first with Mr.
Second.
Barber, seconded by Alderman Hassan. We have Mr. City Attorney would like to chime in on this, sir?
Just a couple of thoughts with regard to that section 4 that was added. I just thought about, okay, maybe it should be a little more specific. Perhaps state Director of Administration is person selecting what department or whatever on the random basis. And then I thought, okay, it doesn't state anything about when the rotation occurs. Is this 2 new departments every month, or does it go for 2 months? So if it's for every month, perhaps it should state every month.
Madam Director of Administration, you have a comment on that?
No, I mean, I thought it was clear, but I guess not. 2 departments will be selected on random, and that would be to have employees participate in the next personnel committee meeting. This would just go kind of on indefinitely until we've gone through all of the departments and then start over again. They'd be able to be part of the discussion, but not have a vote. And part of that would be the ability to request specific topics be placed on the agenda as well. And that's with administration's approval.
And the only other thought was perhaps see how it goes over some period of time, and then maybe if it's working well, come back and amend Municipal Code Section 10-12 Personnel Committee to put in non-voting ex officio members. They're basically attending and participating as members without the right to vote, and it's because of their office within the city.
And I believe that the last meeting, when this was actually brought up, was, to simply bring them in to let, every department know how things are kind of working prior to something getting to council. And that was the interest in the feedback. So I know that's just a little explanation of the backstory. Alderwoman Eichman?
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's wonderful asking the employees to participate. For clarification purposes, is it 1 employee or 2 employees?
2.
Thank you.
Up to 2.
Each.
Up to 2.
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
Up to 2. All right, is there a motion on this?
I make the motion.
Second.
Wasn't it motion?
I thought there was.
There wasn't.
So what, everything's set?
Need to vote.
Yes.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
With those changes in it, or?
So the motion was amended to make those changes in there that the city attorney brought up? Who made the motion?
Barbara?
So Alderman Barber, is your motion stand with the changes brought forth by the city attorney?
If the Director of Administration is okay with that, I thought she was saying that it was, as written, was well enough, so, without changes, so I'd like her to comment.
Yeah, I felt like it was fine, but I'm not opposed to meeting with city attorney and adjusting it.
Okay, so why don't we do it so it's, how about this, Alderman Barber? You made the motion. Director of Administration is fine with having future discussions. So she's fine with the city attorney's adding. So if you're good to amend it, then we'll move forward with the amended.
Okay, because I don't think the Personnel Committee would have an issue.
Agreed. So is there a second? Who did the second?
Alderman Hassan?
Are you good with the second?
Yeah, I'm fine with this.
Okay. So we've got a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. G25. A resolution to award Amendment 1 to Applied Technologies, Inc. for construction-related services for the Lovers Lane Water Tower Transmission Mains and Elevated Water Storage Tank in the amount of $157,250. Mr. City Engineer.
Applied Technologies is doing the design for the water tower and the associated mains. Since our contract was signed, the project has morphed quite a bit. One is just taking a lot longer than anticipated. They were going to design it basically within 6-9 months and put it out to bid and so forth. So it's been bid out twice. We also bid out multiple packages, and then the ARPA funds required some more bidding efforts. So this was talked about at Board of Water Commissioners back when they did the rebidding, and at the time they weren't sure how much extra they would need. So now that now that everything's been bid out and they're going to construction, they know exactly how much they're short, if you will. This was discussed at length at the Board of Water Commissioners, and they're recommending that you approve this, and this would be and as I show there, it's still within budget for the entire projects.
Excellent. Mr. City Attorney.
Mr. City Engineer, just with regard to this Amendment 1, well, first of all, it says Amendment 1 in the intro, but not in the title. And then at the bottom, it refers to previous amendments. Were there any previous amendments to this?
No, sir.
I didn't think so. Okay, well, I would suggest a motion, a number of minor changes to the draft Amendment 1.
I'll make the motion to adopt the resolution as stated by the city attorney.
With changes be approved by the city engineer and the city attorney.
Correct.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Going into G26. A motion to enter closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85 sub 1 sub E to deliberate upon the tax incremental district number 5 development agreement shortfall and payment in lieu of taxes and collection costs and expenses and related agreements provisions, the negotiation of provisions and terms, and the investing of public funds in relation thereto for competitive and bargaining reasons, and to re-enter open session at the same place thereafter to act on such matters discussed therein as it deems appropriate.
Motion to go into closed.
Second.
We have a first and a second. This is a roll call, please.
Alderman Craig?
Aye.
Alderman Barber?
Aye.
Alderman Hassan?
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman?
Aye.
4 ayes, no nos, motion carries. Thank you.
Recording in progress.
It's 8:31 PM. We are back in open session. Is there a motion? Mr. Craig?
Motion to direct staff as discussed in closed session.
Second.
We've got a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. G27. A motion to enter a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85 sub 1 sub E for market competition and bargaining reasons to deliberate and consider terms relating to potential commercial, industrial, manufacturing developments and proposals, and the investing of public funds and governmental actions in relation thereto and to affect such developments, including the terms and provisions of potential development agreements for, including but not limited to, the properties at the southeast corner of South Oakwood Park Drive and West Ryan Road, and to re-enter open session at the same place thereafter to act on such matters as discussed therein as it deems appropriate.
Motion to enter.
You got a first?
Second.
Second to go into closed. Roll call, please, for closed session motion.
Alderman Craig?
Aye.
Alderman Barber? Aye. Alderman Hassan?
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman?
Aye.
Is there a motion, Mr. Craig?
No motion necessary.
There's no motion necessary.
Moving on to G28. A motion to enter closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85 sub 1 sub F, considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data of specific persons, preliminary consideration of specific personnel problems, or the investigation of charges against specific persons, except where Pair B applies, which, if discussed in public, would be likely to have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data, or involved in such problems or investigations and public records in relation thereto, and Wisconsin State Statute 905.03, lawyer-client privilege, and Wisconsin State Statute 1935 sub 1, right to inspection, and to re-enter open session at the same place thereafter to act on such matters discussed therein as it deems appropriate.
I'll make the motion to go into closed.
We've got the motion by Alderman Barber, seconded by Alderman Eichman. Is that fine? Good. All those, roll call, please.
Aye.
Roll call, please.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderman Barber. Alderman Craig.
Aye.
4 ayes, no nos, 2, 1 vacant, 1 absent. Motion.
Make the motion.
We got a first, we got a second by Mr. Barber. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Let's see here, licenses.
Yes.
Alderman Craig.
License Committee convened this evening at 5 o'clock. On the
Who is present?
Alderwoman Eichman and Alderman Craig were both present. Alderwoman Day, as evident by her empty seat this evening, was not there. Going through pages 276 and 277, the extraordinary events were both recommended for approval. The birthday party for the temporary entertainment and amusement license will be approved pending proof of insurance prior to the event itself. All the operators on page 276 were recommended for approval. And then on page 277, the first operator is going to be hold for an appearance in front of the licensing committee. And the last operator will be approved, will be recommended for approval. That is all that we saw this evening.
And do you have a motion for that?
I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the recommendations and the hold for the
And I also
operator.
second that.
So we've got a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Going to item I as in Ida. 3 points, city vouchers with an ending date of June 27th, 2024, the amount of $1,646,985.11. Point 2, payroll dated June 28th, 2024, in the amount of $482,578.50, and payments of the various payroll deductions in the amount of $618,532.70, plus city matching payments. And point 3, estimated payroll dated July 12th, 2024, in the amount of $470,000, and payments of the various payroll deductions in the amount of $275,000, plus city matching payments.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a first and a second. This is a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
Alderman Barber. Aye. Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
4 ayes, no nos, 1 vacant, 1 absent. Motion carries. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
First and seconded by Hassan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, Alderman Barber, for participating.
Maggie did a great job.
I shall continue to heal.
All right, thank you, sir.
You didn't even notice. Didn't even let them see you sweat.
Recording stopped.